We're back with Florida Senate President Mike Haridopolos and Speaker of the Florida House, Dean Cannon. One more question about the budget. I know we've got a ways to go in session, but have any differences emerged so far in the budgeting process that you can see, and it's inevitable, between the approach of the House and the Senate, Mr. President?
Well, I think we're going to have, I'm sure, some minor disagreements. That's part of the process. We want to make it an organic process, meaning the members have a lot to say within the individual subcommittees. But we recognize the budget is in three prime areas: education, health care, and of course the pay and pension packages for state workers. And that's where the brunt of the cuts are going to have to come, just out of simple math. But I'm confident that with our relationship that we'll be able to land that plane, and most importantly, without raising a tax, because simply we can't afford it. And these will be tough calls, there's no doubt. This is why we're really blessed, I know, not only in the Senate but in the House, by some very talented people. I've got a former House Appropriations Chairman as one of our sub-chairs. Of course, J.D. Alexander's in his second run as Appropriations Chair. We're really blessed with a lot of talent, and I think that we'll be well served by each of those folks. This is not a top-down organization. This is, I think, an organization that makes sure that everyone has a say, Republican and Democrat alike.
And I would echo those sentiments. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The House and the Senate, fortunately, I think we have a common philosophy. We may have different approaches, but that's a healthy thing, where each chamber makes the other ideas better. And so there will definitely be some differences, but I got a ton of confidence in Chair Grimsley, Chair Alexander, and the subcommittee chairs, and certainly in Mike, that I think even though it's dire, because we at least share a common view that we don't raise taxes, we balance the budget by cutting spending, that at the end of the day, it'll be a budget we can all be proud of.
Well, it's both of you project confidence, and this is a tough session, perhaps the toughest I can recall. And let's just take one subject that we've talked about before the last time we were here, and that's education, spending for education. And you were talking about making sure that whatever is there gets through to the classroom level. I think the governor's talked about maybe cutting education spending by up to 10%. And you've each said that everything's going to be on the line. Are you still confident that you can cut the budget and still have a viable education budget when you come out the other end of the chute, Mr. Speaker?
Completely confident. And here's why. The governor's proposal is exactly that. It's his articulation of what he would do with the budget, and he's just one person, and that's the role, the proper role of the chief executive and the governor. The legislative branch's job is to sort of roll up our sleeves and get down into the details. One of the things that I think you'll see probably both the House and the Senate do is, yes, we're going to make reductions in overall education spending, but we will try and prioritize spending on the classroom. Among the themes that I've told our appropriations folks is, in tough times, you emphasize people over things and essentials over non-essentials. And by that I mean, listen, in K-12 education, what's the core mission? It's to teach students in the classroom, not to build buildings, not to do other non-instructional things. So we would prioritize that. Essentials over non-essentials. In healthcare, for example, taking care of our truly sick and helpless through the medically needy program makes sense. A lot of these programs where we buy billboards up and down the interstate telling people to live healthy lifestyles, it's 2011. If you don't know that smoking is bad for you by now, you're not paying attention. So focus on the essentials over the non-essentials, and preserve. We may have to cut funding to good programs to fund the essential programs, and I think that's how we'll go about it.
Mr. President, where are we on Medicaid reform?
Well, first let me add to what the Speaker has said. He's right on target. It's about putting our priorities in place, just like a family or business might do every single day. And remember, we're not only in a national economy, we're in a worldwide economy. And what has every business across the world done? They've reduced the overhead cost of operating a business so they can get the services or the product to the customer. Well, that's what we need to do with education as well. Whatever adjustments we make in education, we're going to have as little impact as possible in the classroom. And that's what, for example, our education reform bill is all about, putting the resources where the people are really making a difference. That said, as far as Medicaid, this is, again, Speaker Cannon was a superstar last year. He really elevated the debate. He talked about how we fundamentally change the way that Medicaid is delivered. It has to be patient-centered again. What we're so disappointed what's happened in Washington is become government-centered. And I'm excited about the proposal that he has put out. We've put out a proposal as well in the Senate. And it's trying to move people towards higher quality of care, more access to care, and trying to stay out of what they call an acute care situation, which means stay out of the emergency room. I think his proposal provides that. I think the proposal coming out of the Senate provides it. I expect to have a work product that not only saves money, that's important, yes, but the most important thing is a higher quality of care and also aggressively going after fraud. Again, I applaud the speaker. We're trying to keep up with him on this one. He's done a masterful job, and I expect our different members to get together, work out a proposal that benefits the patient and the taxpayer in the long run.
If I can add to that, I also want to say, though, President Haridopolos set the tone last summer by doing his Medicaid tour, where he actually went in. I was at the kickoff, went into a clinic, and there are some good, innovative things we can do. And I think Chair Negron and the team in the Senate have got some great ideas as well. And so we're looking forward to, again, as I said, hopefully each ideas chambers bring the best of their ideas to the final package, and we end up with something that really benefits, like Mike said, the patients and Florida overall.
Well, just one issue that I'm sure you've heard a lot about is whether or not in the future mental health will be covered in Medicaid. And that's been written about a lot. What's the story on that?
I'll say this. I've got a nephew with autism, so I'm highly sensitive to the developmentally disabled population. And that, nursing home care, there's some very sensitive areas because these are people who have great needs and they're expensive. One of the things that I like about the House approach is that care is specialized, but it can still be managed if you are smart about it. And if you get the right provider connected to that particular patient, that can be done. Other states are doing it successfully. And so it's preferable, I think, to do that than just a massive rate cut, which is what we've dealt with in the past. That doesn't serve anyone's interests. So I'm pretty optimistic that that will be covered at the end of the day effectively through Medicaid. But again, we'll have to wait and see. But I think other states have done it successfully, and our job is not to copy other states, but frankly, to use a Florida approach that's even better.
You can imagine the people that are on the receiving end of Medicaid are really concerned when they know that, of necessity, the legislature has got to be concerned about the cost of Medicaid, and they hear the word reform and they think that they're going to be denied services of some kind, either through a managed care system or something else. What do you say to people, I know you know, and your wife treats people that are concerned about, losing service? At the end of the day, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, first, I do think we'll have the reforms in place by the end of session. But look, I don't blame folks. This is a difficult time. There's a lot of uncertainty in the air, to say the least. To try to alleviate those concerns, last year I know in the Senate, I actually served on the committee, 40 hours worth of testimony. As the speaker mentioned, we went out on the road in rural and urban areas across the state, listening to people, not talking to people, listening to people, which really helped us craft a message and, more importantly, a policy we think will work. But also we have to understand, remember what's happening in less than 3 years. We're going to see an expansion of Medicaid of up to 50%. If you think that Medicaid is crippling the budget today, you can only imagine increasing the number of folks on Medicaid from roughly 3 million today to 4.5 million people. And what we all agree on, left and right and center, is that Medicaid is a big cost shift. The reimbursements don't really come in, and that means anyone who has a private insurance plan is paying an artificially higher price. This is why we're trying to bring fundamental reforms and put some accountability measures in place, aggressively go after fraud. Again, try to get on the front end of the issue. If we can move towards these primary care clinics, for example, people don't go to the emergency room where it costs 10, 20 times more for the same type of care. This is a common sense approach. I know some people are apprehensive, but if we don't make these changes this year, there won't be a system worth a darn in a couple of years because the extravagant increase in numbers of people in the system, let alone the coverages, they'll eventually wipe out the high-quality overall healthcare system we have in America today.
Mr. Speaker, you have dropped a bombshell. You might not be aware of it, but I'm sure. No. This has to do with the restructuring of the Supreme Court of the state in the form of 4 proposed constitutional amendments having to do with creating 2 Supreme Courts, in essence, one civil, one criminal, and really revising the rules process so that the legislature is in the rule-making business for the court. And also revising the way judges can be recalled, if you will. Why did you want to do that? And what was your thinking? And What do you hope to achieve?
Several things. First, the judicial branch, in many ways, secures our most essential constitutional rights and liberties. There have been some interesting and valid criticisms of the judicial branch from both the left and the right. And the package of proposals we're putting together is designed to address all of those concerns. I supported, as did the President, the Innocence Commission last session, which is designed the work of folks like Sandy Dalembert to make sure that we don't wrongfully convict people of crimes, because the criminal justice system has the ability to take away your liberty, and in the case of a capital crime, even your life. We should bring focused expertise to those decisions, because the last thing in the world anybody should want, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, is someone wrongfully convicted of something. And so the idea of creating two Supreme Courts, this is exactly what Texas does, is have a criminal Supreme Court and a civil Supreme Court. And with that, you basically get all of the expertise and focus on the capital cases that right now can crowd out other civil cases, and you bring focused expertise to it. Texas has, frankly, less of a rate of overturning of convictions. They get better justice, and it's more efficient. It happens more rapidly. On the right, in Florida, more folks pass away from natural causes than from execution on death row. And so the system is broken.
We got about a minute.
Okay, well then I'll try and speed it up. The whole point is bring focused expertise like we do in other levels of court. We have a family court, we have criminal divisions, you have business litigation courts. Specialty courts work because they bring focused expertise to the problems, and you get better, more efficient justice. And so I think it's a great idea, and I think it'll make our system better overall.
I promise you, when we get together again, we'll give you more time to talk about that, because it's a very fundamental sort of change.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Speaker, for joining us. We'll come back in a couple of weeks and look at where you think this session will come in for a landing.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.